Put the whoosy on the whatsy. Attach the whatsy to the whoosy. Connect the thingamajig to the thingamabob. And that'll make the whatchamacallit.
Welcome back to Making Records with Eric Valentine. As you can see, I finally got this episode done. It's finally up there for everybody to see. Sorry about that. It just wasn't going to happen last weekend. So I'm going to always do my best to try and get something every weekend. I like that pace. It should be doable, but sometimes it just gets too crazy and I can't get it done. So sorry about that, but it's finally done here for everybody. This is, not surprisingly, another episode about the record that I did with my wife, Grace. So I promised everybody that I wouldn't just do all episodes about this record right now. I'm sort of not following through on that promise, but I'm going to promise again. So after this one, I'm just going to do a bunch of other stuff for a little bit. I got a bunch of other stuff that is available to do. I'm going to dive into that, and so we'll take a break. We'll take a break from this. So I had a bunch of technical problems with this last one. So a little bit of which was definitely user error, was my fault. I have two screens that I use when I'm working in the computer. When I'm filming an episode, I have to turn off one of the screens because I don't know how to screen capture more than one screen at a time. So what happened was I was putting all of the plugins up on my other screen the way I have it when I'm actually mixing, and so nobody could see what I was doing. I was talking about all kinds of super important, amazing stuff happening with the plugins. Nobody could see what was happening. So I ended up having to refilm that by myself. Unfortunately, we lost a little bit of the, playful banter between Grace and I while I was trying to stay focused on actually explaining what happened in the recording. So I think it all worked out cool. You'll get the best of everything in there. I get to really focus on explaining what happened, and I kept as much of the stuff, the input from Grace as I could, as we're going through the song. And it's a cool episode. It's another one of these episodes where you really get to hear about the entire creation of a song, from the very beginning of what inspired the idea of the song. And this time around, I actually was able to pull up a bunch of the super early demos that we had for the song. And so I play a couple of those. With this particular song, it's a very interesting evolution. Some very dramatic changes happen along the way. And then later, so after we filmed the thing, and I was trying to just find some stuff to look at while I was playing the song for everybody to have a reference point for what we were talking about, I realized that we had actually taken a ton of pictures and video from the time when the song was written. And so I wanted to incorporate that. Then there was some question. The record company was thinking that maybe they wanted to use it for stuff that they're doing, but it turned out it made more sense for me to do it here. Yay! So I get to use it. So you'll see all that when I play the song. You will be seeing footage of back in 2016 when Grace and I wrote the song. We talk about all this stuff, this drive that we went on through the Southwest and stopping at these caves, and that inspired a whole other thing that just happened recently. And finally realizing, like, man, it'd be cool to have a guitar. We went to a pawn shop. There's a bunch of pictures of that, and then we went to these coral sands where the song really got written on these sand dunes. So there's us like walking around out there, and then there's even footage of us. There was one night we were basically sleeping in our car for some of this on this road trip, and of us in the car actually playing the song together. So there's a bunch of really cool footage of when it really actually happened that I found afterwards and incorporated in this thing. So there was a little question about whether that was going to happen or not. I had to wait and see what was going to happen with that, but it's in there for everybody to check out. And then I also include footage from the studio when Lucius was in the studio and the band was in the studio. So you really get the whole journey of this song. You know, when it was written and when it started, and you know, the demoing along the way, and we talk about all that. So it's a real deep dive into this song. And then once we get into the technical stuff, just so you know, for the people that are more here for the, you know, studio recording, whatever techniques and whatever stuff, it's pretty deep in. It's probably a good 45, maybe 50 minutes in. So if you don't want all the playful banter and anecdotes, you can skip ahead to that. You know, it is when Grace and I are hanging out and you put a camera in front of us, it tends to get pretty silly. So brace yourselves for that. And you know, I'm forced to have to like edit between me trying to talk about what happened technically on stuff by myself, and then back to Grace and I being in here. So there's some pretty clumsy editing in there, but it all works out, you know. Ultimately, I think all the information that might be interesting is preserved, even though the production value is about as bad as it gets. But I don't really care about that. I'm not a video producer, so who cares? So here we go. This is the song Repossession by Grace Potter. Well, hello, Grace Potter.
Oh, hello, Eric Valentine.
Welcome to my YouTube channel.
Thank you. It's really good to be here.
Well, I know it was a long journey. You had to come all the way from the garden boxes.
I tripped over at least 2 tricycles to get here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed. One of them still right back there.
Oh, yep. That's the one that got me.
So this is a very exciting day.
It is.
Yeah. The album Daylight that we worked on together was released to the world today. Today, yeah. So it was funny because last night we were sort of gearing up to have our little toast at midnight.
Yep.
And all of a sudden we started getting texts.
At like 9:20 or 10 p.m.
Because they released it at midnight East Coast time.
That's how math works, folks. In case you live in California, it turns out midnight happens at a different time elsewhere.
Yeah, everything happens late for us. So, but last night was fun. We started hearing from our friends and stuff that the album's out. Yeah. And finally, you know, people are getting a chance to hear this whole thing. We've been sort of dribbling it out. There's a few songs, you know.
You've been bothering your viewers with it for the last couple months. Sorry, everybody.
Showcasing it on the YouTube.
On behalf of the entire Valentine family, I am ashamed of this guy.
Yeah. You know, she should be. And so, but I am shamelessly, you know, incorporating this stuff in the channel because it's just it's so much of what's going on right now. Yeah. It's so exciting, and it's just like really one of the favorite things I've ever done in my life. Yeah. There's so much about this record. There's going to be a preamble, I'm sure. I always do the preamble after.
I'm going to do the preamble for you. It's going to get weird. There's going to be a lot of things that
I'm excited for. We're
going way off format. Speaking of off format, can we talk about one thing that's definitely not in format with your usual? That this room is clean and that you kind of decked it out and made it like delightful in here.
Yeah.
I am going to in my preamble share a little blooper reel of all the different making records with Eric Valentine that involve the messiest, most undesirable place to be in the entire world, including like what's with the packing peanuts and pillows on the floor. Anyways, I just want to get that out of the way now because, as you know, I care very much about what you do. It's how I fell in love with you. Right. It's why I fell in love with you. And if I'm not, it makes me feel like I'm not doing my job.
It had nothing to do with my personality, for sure. It was all about the recording.
It was definitely just the way you make records. Right. I'm pretty sure that's,
Yeah.
I locked you down.
Yeah.
For the rest of my life.
And the awesome T-shirt. It was
Okay,
all
yeah.
about the
Well,
T-shirt.
I was going to mention that later. Just in case anybody's wondering, this is Eric Valentine.
Yep,
And
that's me.
For his birthday a couple years ago, his family made a multitude of these. So I've had several.
Yeah.
I dyed this one blue.
I know, they just won't go away.
I'm so glad they won't go away. I'm never getting rid of them.
That's a picture of me from 1985,
Really?
86. Yeah, somewhere around there.
So like right after I was
17.
born.
Yeah, exactly. You were just only a few years old.
It's weird. Isn't that weird? This whole thing is very weird.
Yeah, it just got weird.
No, it's going to get way weirder. Let's just be clear. But I do feel like this is weird.
Okay, great. Then it should be weird. Yeah. What are you doing?
I'm pretending to be one of these termite flies that are cruising around everywhere, eating our house.
All kinds of...
Okay. Is my microphone still sitting where it's supposed to?
It's kind of pointing at the tricycle, Mom.
Is that bad?
If there was only an engineer here.
I know. Okay. I like that. You should keep doing that.
Okay, yeah. See, that's how all this started. Yeah.
I tried. He was very professional in the studio. There was several moments where I just wanted to like test the boundaries.
Yeah.
Mainly because you were just getting really tired. You'd go in for like 24-hour windows of just like mixing and like nonstop, just be like a vampire. Right. You'd come in the morning and you were just like, I think my adrenals are broken, or
I've never said that.
You've never said that, but I said something like, "What you need to do is awaken your adrenals," and let me show you how, Eric. Yeah. Do you remember that?
I do remember this.
And what happened was I was not trying to be fresh with you, but I enjoy.
You were genuinely trying to help me out, wake me up.
No, I enjoy making people a little bit uncomfortable.
The task at hand, yeah, okay.
And it was very easy to make you uncomfortable when it came to any level of sexuality or mention of sexuality in the studio, because you're very respectful.
We're there to work, you know?
So I am not that way. And I felt that it would be helpful for me to awaken your adrenals, which my band and I do this. So you kind of go like that and it gets everything gets your body flowing and kind of wakes you up.
Wakes you up.
Truckers use it when they're doing one of their like big, crazy cross-country trucker things.
Okay.
So I went up behind you and I went like that, and literally within 4 seconds he was like, "Please don't touch me there. This is a professional workspace and I really don't like." I think I
said, "Please don't touch me." Did I say that?
Yes, you did.
Really?
You definitely said, "Please don't touch me," which is, you being nice about it. But we've wandered so far off from talking about records.
I know. We haven't talked about anything.
Is there a fucking bug on my face?
There's something going on here. Yeah.
There's a bug on my face.
There was.
This place should be condemned. I just felt this like creepy crawly thing just coming across me. And then I saw your eyes go, no.
I think this is going great.
Can we just start over?
No, absolutely not. There's no take two on this show. Are you kidding me?
No, I snorted.
Yeah. It's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
We haven't even had any wine yet.
Yeah, I know. It's already totally silly. Yeah.
So.
All right, but
always, ladies and gentlemen, keep a professional, asexual energy in the studio. It is the best way to make sure that a record gets finished in 12 months.
Yeah.
Which is how long it took for us to make this record, basically.
Right. Do you think if there was sexual energy, it would have gotten done faster?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you would have listened to what I say more.
Oh, okay.
If you had known that the stakes were higher.
Remember your nickname in the studio?
Yes.
Remember what
the beach ball. Everybody called me the beach ball.
The human beach ball.
The human beach ball.
Okay, so you know how Macintosh computers, Apple computers, they have the little spinning beach ball on the screen when you have to sit there and wait, for it to do something.
I know that about myself. And if I had been thinking about sex and trying to like get the sex in and then get the recording done, then maybe we would have gone faster, and I wouldn't have beach balled you. I was just pent up.
Yeah, you were frustrated and repressed. All right, let's move on.
I think maybe we have to talk to our lawyers about all of this. Make sure that it's all cleared.
Okay, so a record came out. It's called Daylight.
It came out today. This is so cool. I know.
Yeah. And so it's a special day. So you're welcome. I'm doing more about this record. And so first, I think let's just celebrate the release of this record. Okay, Mama?
Okay.
You ready for this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we gonna cry?
I'm gonna try not
Ooh.
to. Look at that.
There's wine.
Mm-hmm. Wines. So.
Oh.
What do you think here?
This looks beautiful.
Black Stallion,
Yep.
Napa Valley.
Cab Sav. Eric will only drink a good full-bodied California red.
My Psalm on. Oh, you're supposed to.
That's
see.
right. Face the label at me.
Yeah.
Then tilt it towards you so that everybody can see as you pour. Right. Mm-hmm. We went to one wine tasting and suddenly.
Now everybody's an expert.
That's a healthy pour, Valentine.
That's a moderate pour. It'll make for a good show. Now, did I match this up well? I think I'm a little. Yeah.
You did perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll pour the next glass and we'll see.
Okay.
We'll compare a pour.
Congratulations, Grace Potter, on the release of your album, Daylight. Ding! Cheers! This time I'm gonna have a drink. Mm-hmm. I got scolded for that in the previous.
I do feel like the only time wine has ever been introduced or mentioned in these episodes, it's really good.
Yeah.
Is when I come wandering in with wine. It's happened a couple times.
Let's end.
And I just want to let everybody know the other thing about me showing up in the middle of any of these episodes is that it's very much unrehearsed, unintentional, or if it was intentional, it was because there was an emergency,
right?
Or
some other very specific plan.
Yeah, you were deviating from. But
that's getting steamrolled.
I love what you do, and I am a fan of these shows. I actually watch every episode, and I keep track of what happens and what you've covered already and what we haven't covered yet, and like where and how.
You know the format. We talk about recording stuff.
There's a lot to talk about. It's an amazing resource that you've created for people.
We've done almost none of that.
I still don't understand. We haven't.
Right. In this episode, how far?
We're celebrating.
Yeah, we're 15 minutes in. We've done no talking about recording.
But I think it's amazing what you do, and I have an extreme respect for it, and it's part of what I loved about waking up every morning and coming to the studio to make Midnight with you is that just being able to sit in the room and watch you do what you do. Like, we could do this all day and people could watch every single episode of this a million times, but you still wouldn't really get the experience of what it feels like to be in the room watching you be a magician. And I think you deserve some accolades for that because it's ungodly.
Well, I've been very, very lucky. And, it is people like yourself. If I don't have people like this show up with incredible music and passion and, extraordinary gift to sing and play music, then I have nothing to do. So
I think you could probably still think of something.
Yeah,
you like tinkering a lot.
Yeah.
When I first met you,
usually involves a soldering.
You were soldering. Yeah. I met him when he had like every undertone audio unit laid out on the floor, and he was just going one unit at a time with a soldering gun and fixing something that they had forgotten to do to begin with. Yeah.
The channel strips in the console.
Modding the channel strips in the console. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we're going to start talking about recording.
Audio.
Yeah.
And you guys should all know, I know a lot about audio. I am really well versed in XLR cables and Beta 58s, and I can tell you about...
You have a song that refers to an RCA cable.
Tone knobs.
Yeah.
And pedal switches. And...
Microphones.
Drawbar. Oh, microphones. I already said microphones.
You did? Oh.
Well, I said Beta 58.
Okay, great.
I'm just saying.
But you know about all the microphones, wow.
We're going to learn a lot today.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so So we're featuring the song Repossession in this episode, and I chose this one because it is actually, for real, I think the best recording I've ever made in my life.
He said that many times,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
This is the one so far of all the stuff that I've done. I love this recording so much, and so we'll go through the recording. We have a bunch of cool stuff here,
Yeah.
because I think that's the benefit of having the project be more recent.
Yeah.
Some of the early demos, like everything, is available to check out on this, and so we're going to go on this little journey. Let's talk a little bit about when the song was written. This is also one of the songs in the album that's written by Grace and I.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say by Grace and I mean mostly Grace. And
No, this was
and I did a little bit.
This was a pretty. I'd say this is a more 50-50 song than a lot of them.
Yeah, I'd say typically like the lyrics are almost always mostly
Yeah.
you, and melodies are almost always mostly you. There's a couple of rare exceptions for that,
Yeah.
like. I started Love is Love, and so like the verse melodies started, I started those, and there's a couple things there. But most of the time it's almost all, your melodies. And the thing that I did on this one, I think, was a lot of the chord changes and stuff. And so what happened was we went on a little road trip.
For my birthday, you took me to the Grand Canyon,
Southwest
Sedona.
Yeah.
We did a bunch of amazing journeying around, but
so we went and saw Meteor Crater.
no, we didn't do that. That was
We didn't?
That was different, Grace Potter.
Oh, well, we were going to try and do that.
We were going to try and do that, but we didn't do that. We went to
Zion.
Zion.
Okay, yeah.
And we spent the night in that place, and that lady, we weren't supposed to be there, and she
Right,
woke us up in
yeah.
the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, kids.
Hi, kids.
Yeah.
You're in someone's backyard.
Yeah. And so we're driving around and listening to like all these really great like old AM, like classic radio.
Because like
station.
radio, when you get out on the road and you're not like in a major city, it gets really cool. Sometimes it gets real churchy. Sometimes it gets really psychedelic and like, who is running this radio station?
Yeah.
But I love that freedom, and someone had decided to finagle a radio station into just playing basically like country music from the 40s and 50s was basically what we were hearing a lot of.
And it was one of the first times, because there was definitely a hiatus from music, particularly for you, after all the dramatic stuff that had happened. It was time to just kind of decompress and restart that engine at another time. And this was one of the first times when I think I always want to work on music. I always want to play music all the time. That seems to never goes away for me. But it was one of the first times where we were both feeling like, you know what?
Let's do something.
Yeah, it'd be cool to have a guitar. And so...
But we hadn't brought one with us.
We didn't bring any instruments with us. And so we went to a pawn shop and got a guitar that was missing a string and the peg for the high E string.
They needed that high E string for themselves.
And what town was that?
I keep trying to find it. I want to say it's like Canaan or...
Yeah.
I don't remember the name, but it was in Arizona.
It was in Arizona.
And there was a bunch of caves around it because we drove not far from that little village. It was kind of a sleepy but cool kind of Edward Scissorhands town.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
with
a
like
weird
lots
little
of
town.
wild, weird, like why would anybody have a shop for that?
The main street was like 2 blocks long.
I think there was like a ventriloquist shop with puppets and but whatever that name of that place was, I gotta find out the name. But anyways.
Yeah, so we went in there, we got this guitar. I ended up having to sort of whittle down the end of a pencil.
Used a pencil for the peg.
as a peg to put a new string in there. And it's this guitar right here.
Oh, hey!
For $100.
Hey, sailor.
It's called the Laverne.
Laverne!
The
Because
Laverne
who doesn't
guitar.
need a Laverne in their life? But it really, it was a beautiful storyteller for us,
Yeah. Yeah,
Hey. So we clearly eventually found, a peg for the string.
we did, yeah. And so then we ended up in, what was it, the Coral Sand Dunes?
Coral Sand Dunes.
Yeah.
So later that day, we went from the caves, because one of the first things we talked about was we walked around in these caves and they were like the coolest
The
sound.
acoustics were incredible.
And I have some voice memos of you just walking around sort of testing the acoustics of this cave, and we were like, we should come back and record in a cave.
Yeah, and that realization just influenced something that happened recently. We'll
talk about that later.
Yeah, that's a whole other episode. But so we went to the Coral Sands and we just walked out on the sand dunes with the guitar and just decided like, okay, we're just going to come back with a song. And
we did.
And that is when this song happened. And and so
and I think we actually, now that I'm going back through it, we wrote the body of the song first and then the intro to the song, the a cappella intro, separate. And that's what we did in Sedona.
Yes.
Because we went stargazing. There was that cool meeting of all those people where you could sign up and go look at the stars.
Yep.
And we like went out and did that. And the next morning, I think we were getting breakfast or something. And I was like, I think there should be just like an a cappella.
Yeah, we were sitting in a restaurant.
Intro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we came up with the vocal intro. And so then we were staying at some, I don't know, hotel or some place in Sedona. And I ended up recording a demo of it there in GarageBand. We ended up then, after I got home, and Grace was still playing shows and touring and stuff. And
so I flew out to Vancouver from there.
Yeah. And so then I recorded a demo at Barefoot where I just kind of jumped around all the different instruments and played a thing. And then I sent it to you and you sang on that. And then that was the second demo. And then there was a third demo that was done. We brought the band in.
And that was years later.
Yeah.
That was like 2 years later. You're touching me a lot, by the way.
demo.
This is not a professional thing.
Yeah, we're past the whole professionalism
I
thing.
just want to make sure that you know you're touching me a lot.
Yeah, we're well into the non-professional.
Do you do this with all your guests?
I mean, just
I
watch
mean,
the footage.
you and Butch Walker got pretty cozy.
Just watch the footage. So we did a few demos and then we did a final recording. So, and the song is really like this whole record. It's just a snapshot of one of the moments that we were both sort of traveling through, with all the crazy changes in our lives. We were ending relationships, starting a new relationship.
And it was weird because it was not something I wanted to write songs about, and I was really at a standstill with creativity because I was just experiencing, and like all these experiences were kind of washing over both of us.
Yeah.
And I need to process things before I can sing about them. Because if I put it into a song, it's sort of just like, then it's set in stone, and that's how I feel about that thing.
Right.
And I wasn't ready to feel anything about those things. I was just wanting to enjoy the feeling of being in love and being on a new journey. And that was sort of a healthier place for my brain. But then when we were listening to the radio, I remember we both said to each other, we're like, has someone been reading our text messages? Because everything they're saying in this music feels like exactly what we're going through. It felt like
on what our lives are. Yeah.
And yet it had been recorded 60 years ago, and it was this really surreal moment of like, oh, all humans go through this. And that's what music is for, is to help you find your way through really painful, scary, exciting, beautiful, whatever they are, whatever those experiences are. So that I think is what emboldened me to want to make music.
Dive back in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so the song was written. Let's listen to the song. We'll hear where it ended up first, and then we'll go back to
let's just
all the other stuff.
Yeah. Well, and just remind everyone that according to Eric Valentine, and this is now the at least 15th time I've heard you say this, but this is
I'm going to keep saying it.
Quote unquote.
Until something better happens.
I'm not going to say it for you. I'm going to let you say.
I'm saying it right now. I think this is the best sounding thing I've ever recorded in my whatever.
Get ready for a lot of people to disagree with you.
Okay. Okay, music, it's art, subjective.
Your art.
I know.
You're subjective.
I know. Very subjective. All right, so here it is. This is Repossession.
30 big brown boxes lined up by the door. 30 years of my life that you can't claim no more. So now you watch them tumble down your pretty house of cards. This is my repossession, possession of my heart. You say that I threw it all away for nothing. You carry on and say I'm just a fool. You say in a month or two I'll call you crying. Well, don't hold your breath, the phone won't ring for you. I'm through with the endless fights and restless nights beside you. I'm keeping the love inside my heart for someone new. And you say that I threw it all away for nothing. But the only thing I threw away was you. I'm through with the sleepless nights, the pain and all the sorrow. I'm keeping the love inside my heart for someone new. And you say that I threw it all away for nothing. But the only thing I threw away was you. Oh, the only thing I threw away was you.
Okay, yeah. So there you go. I think it sounds incredible. It's just like the most effortless. It sounds huge, and it has this beautiful deep low end that's just
Yeah.
soft and gentle the way it needs to be for the song. Instead of like, I've struggled with that at times, like having that, a strong foundation of low end, but not have it be too bombastic, where it's
Yeah.
just like distracting in the fucking song,
Yeah.
And
This is definitely doesn't need any kind of explosive
no, it all has to be really
moments.
gentle, but it has that really cool deep
Gravity to it.
support in the low end. There's a couple cool tricks that I hadn't really done on other stuff before that made it happen on this song in a cool way. That,
I can't wait to find out what they are.
Get into that. And so so there it is. So maybe we'll just touch a little bit on some of the early versions, because it's kind of interesting the evolution that this thing took. I actually got a sneak peek at some of this stuff.
Trying to dig it up.
Yeah, when I was trying to find these, and so
I haven't heard it all. I haven't heard it at all since. So because that was the summer of 2016 is when we did that trip. So
I believe so. Yeah.
yeah, so this would be. Yeah, I haven't heard it since then.
Yeah.
3 years.
Okay, so it starts with the same vocal intro. So you can
30 big brown boxes
and
lined up by the
Just
door.
like, let's get this out of the way.
30 years of my life.
a lot faster.
You can't claim no more. So now you watch it tumble.
And so this is the demo that I did in GarageBand on my laptop, and then
So was this in Sedona? Because I remember
Yeah,
you
this is
didn't
in
have
Sedona.
you didn't have your Pro Tools dongle, so you had to.
no,
Did you do this on my computer?
there's a huge lack of dongles.
I mean, I got all the dongles you need, baby.
And so,
But yeah, I don't know why we didn't have Pro Tools, but you did
Yeah.
this in Logic, right?
I think it was GarageBand.
Actually, GarageBand.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, okay, so it has the same vocal intro, and then check it out. So the original demo was a different feel entirely. It was this
Oh, yeah.
6/8 feel.
You say that I threw it all away for nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, now check this out. I'm gonna turn it a little bit.
You carry
There's a bunch of chord changes in here that got left out of the final version.
a fool. You say in a month or two I'll call you crying. Well,
That one.
Oh yeah.
your breath, the phone won't ring for you.
Oh wow.
And it waits for
Yeah.
the E chord there.
I'm through with
That
this
cool passing chord. Why didn't we?
sleepless
Damn it!
They're implied, and so in the final version, but
Oh, listen to that. Sorrow.
I'm
We must have been listening to some Leon Redbone at this point too.
yeah, I wanted to get my.
someone new.
And then this is different.
No, that's still the same.
It's similar. It's not exactly the same. So that's an F major chord on the way down. Ultimately, and then minor 4 there.
But the only thing
Wow.
I threw away
God, those are cooler chords than what we did. Damn it!
Yeah, and you know,
But that riff is obviously
yeah, it's a little too.
it's pretty derivative.
Yeah.
The whole thing was blatantly derivative.
Yeah.
Because we were so. This is really cool though to hear this.
Yeah, isn't that cool? You know, I'd forgotten about all those like jazzy chord changes that I put in there.
Oh, I love them.
Yeah. I think it's cooler without them, honestly, now. Like, and they're, you know, the way Benny played the guitar and Curtis played the bass movement. Some of those changes are implied, but they're not like specifically
Well,
like stated.
I
on
get
the
it
guitar.
though, because with that 6/8 feel, with the jacket, you're kind of inviting windows of time. It's all coupleted out, you know, like
Right.
this is the
Kinda
waffle
squared off more.
square that you pour the syrup into, right? But like the way we did it was more like, you know, it breathes a lot more. So I kind of like that. Yeah, the chords aren't exactly being marked.
Yeah, I think
In
it's
each
cooler without
place.
it. With it leaving it a little bit more
Yeah.
ambiguous, a little vaguer, and you know they're hinted at times,
Yeah.
and it adds to.
I know, but
sort
there's
of
some
the
really creative.
Yeah, there's
But
some cool
very,
stuff in
they're classic. I mean, I remember we talked a lot about that, like Les Paul, Mary Ford. Those recordings are just.
there. Yeah, I mean those are the same kind of chord changes that are in like Crazy,
Yeah.
and all of those like
Yeah, which is the
super-duper
song
classic
I
songs.
think most people think of when they hear this song.
Yeah,
They think of Patsy Cline and then Crazy, or.
yeah,
But I think at the time we were tripping on Stardust.
yeah.
Sometimes I wonder why I
Some
spend
beautiful.
the lonely nights. And we wanted like an excuse to have that chord.
Mm-hmm.
Why in pop music would you ever?
Yeah.
But I think this is well before we realized we were not making pop music.
Yeah, no.
So it didn't fucking matter.
So then here's the next version where Grace was off on tour. I just took a few hours at Barefoot and just went around to each instrument and just played through the song. And
But
so
it still has the original feel, right?
this is
Yeah.
still 6/8, and so I played drums, bass. There's vibraphone.
Oh, that's
I
right. Weren't we gonna have Nick Mancini play on this?
Yeah,
Why didn't we?
because it's cooler without it. It's
Nothing is cooler than Nick Mancini
Yeah,
playing vibes on
he-
anything.
yeah, he's incredible, but
Yeah. Right.
the way it ended up is the way it needed to be.
I know. I just, I don't think art is ever done because
Yeah.
my whole shit is a live show. So I'm always like, guess what I'm going to change about the song when I get
Yeah.
on stage.
Yeah, we just had a round of that.
But this is about, oh, right. This is a show about recorded music. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
yeah.
Okay. Right. Just reminding myself
Okay,
again. Yeah.
so here's this one, and so then once I recorded the music, I sent it to Grace. She was out on the road, and she just sang like into her laptop speaker this lead vocal, and I put it back on top of it. And so it has the same intro.
30 big brown boxes
So there's that thing again,
lined up.
and then we'll get into the actual song, and
you
this
can
is
tell
one
I'm
of-
kind of slowing it down a little more in the
Yeah.
second performance.
And so this is where I was like, okay, let me just see how close I can get to Patsy Cline Crazy. Let's just go all the way there and
Right.
just see what happens. And so that's what this recording is.
You say that I threw
It sounds
it
exactly
all
like it,
away
right?
for nothing.
Well, not with my voice going through computer speaker microphones.
Yeah.
You carry on and say I'm
Oh my
just
God.
a fool.
Obviously, I was trying to sound like Patsy Cline.
You say in a month or two you'll call me crying. Well, don't hold your breath. The phone won't ring for you. I'm through with the endless.
And so this is the beginning of the chords being more implied and
Right.
not like explicitly stated, because there's no guitar that's like strumming chords along. And so like that change into the B section, you hear it go to the G sharp, but and that also is sort of implied by the notes of the bass play, but the chords aren't being
Marked.
totally
Yeah,
marked.
which I like.
Only thing I threw away.
And then you'll love the solo section. Remember what happened here?
No, what do I do? Oh my God, that's right! I was like, what's gonna happen here? I guess I'll whistle it.
Yeah.
Which, I'm an excellent whistler.
Yeah. Indeed.
That's absurd.
Yeah.
I'm through.
Okay. so
I'm glad
then-
I'm glad we didn't have a whistling solo.
I would say Lucius is singing in three-part harmony
Yeah.
with you.
Oh, I mean, but Andrew Bird,
Yeah.
if we can get Andrew Bird with Lucius
Mm-hmm.
in that section, it might have been.
Yeah, that might have been too much awesome in one song.
You're too much awesome in one song.
Yeah, I know. So, so this is the first time the band actually played it, right?
Right.
And we started off recording this with the 6/8.
And then we had to readjust, and then the poor band
in
had
the-
to
in the middle of it-
unremember how to
Yeah.
do it that way.
I was like, okay, let's try playing this straight.
Doom, ta, doom, doom, ta, doom. Take my breath away. Doom, doom, doom. I remember that because I was like, I think I said I didn't want it to be so corny. I wanted it to be really passionate, and I wanted it to
Well,
be,
I wanted it to be its own thing.
yeah.
And I felt like taking it away from the 6/8 feel would actually take it into a new place, you
Right.
know, that nothing, where not something exactly like that had been done before.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Musty he's very versatile. So he was instantly like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll play straight,
Yeah.
And Curtis, I think, made the transit. Was Curtis there for this?
I believe Curtis was on bass. We had Harlan Hodges on piano.
Yeah, or he played organ.
Oh, he
on
played
this.
organ on
Yeah,
that.
on this.
Yeah.
And it was Eliza.
Who is not a guitar player, by
guitar
the way,
player,
and was
is playing-
she's a pianist who in that moment was like, I guess, yeah, I'll oh no, Harlan wasn't there. Harlan wasn't there. This was before Harlan came in because Dylan Day was in that session, and Dylan Day played the guitar when we first did it. Yeah.
No.
So
this is-
Eliza was there playing piano, But then on this song, we
It's
decided
definitely Eliza playing guitar on this version.
right.
Of this song.
I'm just saying Harlan wasn't there for that session.
Okay.
It was just the band. It was because we were on tour. We were coming through town, and everybody was there.
It was after the rehearsals.
Yeah.
Right. The rehearsals at Froggy's, and then.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It was like Curtis's first week.
Yeah.
Playing with us.
Yeah.
So it was just the core band and Benny, Eliza, Curtis, and Musty. So Eliza was like, I don't play guitar. I will totally mark these chords. I will totally do this, but like, just so you know.
Yeah.
Like,
and so it's really interesting on this version.
Yeah.
You'll hear the acoustic guitar is still kind of swinging, playing to the sort of 6/8 feel while the rest of the band is playing
I remember that.
It's really, it's actually kind of cool.
You say that I threw it all away for nothing.
And this is also when Benny
came up with
really-
that amazing guitar part
Yes.
that brings you into the song that's
Yeah.
way more original than bar bum bum bum
that
bum.
incredible
Ready?
that augmented
That
chord.
is
Yeah.
we both heard it. We were like, hallelujah.
Yeah, because I remember
Oh, and
telling
that
him
chord change. So the crying.
Yeah, the sus
That's
chord
something
there.
we came up with. I feel like I had
that was
sung it-
your thing,
Yeah,
yeah.
I had sung it to myself that way. Or whenever I listened back to the demos of it, I always wanted to sing it sort of more out and just like bleh, like definitely not country, more just something that
Yeah.
feels more like me, which is more of a bluesy lean or gospel chord. And I kept on hearing it and then not singing it and going, crying. Oh, thank you. I thought you just wanted to touch me.
I do want to and fix your mic.
Thank you. But that moment was cool because the band reacted so well to the
Yeah.
crying. Everybody
Yeah.
was really psyched on it, and it gave me the courage to want to pursue the not going into the strut anymore. Like we didn't have the 6/8 feel. I wasn't totally sold on that,
Yeah.
but I just wanted that like passion and depth to come across. And the best way it does for me is singing.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and so the bunch of really cool stuff happened in this version of it. But I think Benny's guitar stuff was sort of the most significant.
It was the
of
windfall. It was
Yeah.
just such a cool.
And I remember specifically telling him that we need to have a guitar thing here. It definitely can't be.
It can't be a solo that just is like a just a Emily Ernie. You have
Yeah.
to find something
Gotta
that
be a
is
thing.
moody and
Yeah, and boy did he nail it. It's
Yeah.
just my favorite. It's one of
I
my
know.
favorite guitar things on the whole record.
well, we
It's
did. We
so
had talked about that
brilliant.
chord and how I remember now. We talked about like what are the actual chords. Let's find the voicings of the chords and then deconstruct them.
Yeah,
Because-
but I mean that augmented chord was never in any version of this song ever before. That's totally all Benny.
Just a half.
Yeah.
It's a half step bend because why the fuck not?
Yeah.
Because he's Benny Yurko and he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, so that
so
happened.
fun.
And so then ultimately when we did the final album version, it was just we basically just recreated this and had it a little more refined. The band had maybe even played it live. Maybe? No.
I don't think we.
No, they hadn't played it live yet.
No,
Okay, yeah.
because there was a whole other round of demoing. It was when I was super pregnant, and we had Dylan Day, Harlan Hodges, Matt Musty,
Oh,
and
right.
Benny
Right.
and Curtis, I believe.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh no, we had a different bass player,
Oh, that's right.
Steve.
It was,
Ian.
No, Ian Walker. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just making up names.
Yeah.
I was pregnant. I don't remember anything.
Yeah.
Anyways, that session was we took another crack at it, I believe, in that window of time.
No, I don't.
No?
We didn't try and re-record it then.
You know why? Because we were so happy with that demo. I think
Yeah,
we knew
demo was
we
great.
had that. And then when we finally did do it, was Benmont playing organ?
Yes. Yeah. So now is the time we're going to dive into this final version. And
Yeah.
we can see how this thing actually really happened.
Can we? Okay, this is the part that everybody waits for. So there's like two types of people that watch Making Records with Eric Valentine. There's the people who only watch the intros and the like human.
There's very few of those
stuff. I know, they're all my friends.
Right.
No, there's just like, oh, does Sagan come in this one? No.
Yeah.
There's a lot more people that are mostly interested in the screen part.
Yeah.
So now I even know, because I know what he says in the preambles and stuff, I even know to scoot forward to the screen stuff, because that's when I see the real Eric Valentine come out. The version of you that you tuck away gently in your back pocket when you come into the kitchen to have dinner.
Yes. And I try really hard to just stop talking about
the
tube
gears
compressors
in
and,
his brain just go
tape
all day.
machines
It's
and,
so sexy. I love it. I like
I'm
you're
glad
like
somebody
Spock.
finds it sexy.
Like like Leonard Nimoy would always say, like that I always played Spock as someone who was constantly in the state of trying to repress my emotions,
his human side,
and my human side. But I think Eric Valentine lives in a reality in which he is constantly trying to repress all the gears in his brain that are like, but if I just invented this one other thing that would make everything sound better. Okay, here come the eggs. You know, that's our life now.
Yep. That's right.
Okay, get to that screen.
Okay, yeah. So
this is what you've all been waiting for.
I don't know, over 40 minutes in, we're finally going to actually.
Is it any surprise that I'm the most human?
The human beach ball.
I beach ball this entire episode.
Yeah. So we've got. We'll start with the drums. There's some interesting stuff here. So it was a pretty simple drum setup for this whole record. There's I only allotted 6 tracks total for me. We were recording on a 16-track machine for all this. Everything is recorded through a Scully 2-inch 16-track, and so I had set up a kick mic, a snare mic, some overhead mics that would double as tom mics, and then either a stereo room or an extra room mic here or there. And they would get moved around a little bit here and there. So this one, I ended up doing a kick/snare mic. So I had a mic on the batter side of the kick drum. So I moved something around to do that. The overheads that were close to the drums ended up not sounding even remotely.
They were really bright,
ambient enough.
Yeah,
they were just too dry, and so
too clean.
I ended up using what I had set up as room mics as essentially the overhead mics for the drums. It was a pair of U87s that were probably 10 feet away from the drum kit, and so we'll start off there because it's cool. You can hear everything that's going on in the room because they're kind of picking up everything. And so, I mean, these are basically like drum mics and guitar room mics. So yeah, there's a ton of guitar in there.
I mean, it was a pretty bloody session,
Yeah, everything's bleeding into everything else. And
that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Bloody.
I like that. Bloody. It's a bloody session. There's a lot of bleeding going on. And that was a big part of the approach for this record in general was to just let everything sort of blend together in the room. So you really feel like you're actually in that space with the band when it's all happening. And so this stuff, he was playing so soft that I had the mics just cranked going to the tape machine so it wouldn't be this hissy mess.
And you remember, I think you had to warn people, like, don't drop anything or don't do anything too loud because it will blow things up.
Yeah.
At that point, you had them so opened up.
Yeah, and so there's I ended up actually having to reprint these because there was where the microphones were positioned in the room. They were picking up guitar, and this will happen where you'll have hot spots for particular notes in particular places in the room. And one of the mics was definitely a hot spot for a particular note that Benny played on the guitar. And because I had the volume cranked so much because Matt Musty was playing just whisper quiet on the drums, there's this one spot where the guitar just totally distorts, like out of control. And it happens every time you go to that section. And this is
an interesting note for it to grab onto.
Yeah. And that was the reprint of it. So this is what was originally captured on the tape machine. And the way I do this when I'm recording with tape machines now is I'm capturing the raw mic preamp signals going directly into the computer. So I have a digital capture of just the raw mic preamps, totally uneq'd, unprocessed, everything, just directly out of the mic preamp. So I'm capturing that as a safety net. And this is exactly when, I need it. And then everything gets bussed through the console to tracks on the tape machine. And ultimately I'm trying to do it so I just get everything right, have it go through the tape machine, and I only use the analog stuff later on. But this was an instance where these got so distorted. I went back to the digital tracks and reprinted them. So this is what was originally captured through the tape machine in the recording, and they're crazy distorted on this note. Yeah.
Wow.
So there, it happens there, and I think it happens here.
I remember because I thought,
yeah.
Oh, that's not as crazy.
Yeah. So I guess this one's the worst.
But I remember I thought it was a cymbal hit because it was so.
It is. He's hitting a cymbal,
yeah.
And it gets modulated by the low end distortion, of the guitar. So. Yeah, so there it is.
It's kind of a cool sound, though. It reminds me of that crazy distorted guitar in, like, the Barbarella soundtrack, you know?
Yeah.
Just like, like crazy, like, buzzing fly
all the equipment
sound
going
guitar.
like, help me.
Yeah.
What are you doing to me? And so then this is the reprint of it, and it turned out that quite a bit of the distortion was just in the mic preamp.
Right.
But I at least was able to manage it a little bit so it didn't distort even more on the tape machine. And so I ended up with this.
Is that what's on the recording?
Yeah, that's what's on the final record.
Well, now I'm going to be listening for that the whole time.
Yeah, so you can hear it in context here. It just, it just sneaks right by. You'd never know.
With the sleepless nights, the pain.
Yeah, and I do think the flat organ.
I'm through with the sleepless nights. The
it's nothing.
Yeah, don't even notice it. Just wildly distorted in there. So it looks like there's a little bit of gating going on, very, very subtle, only 3.5 dB of reduction. Yeah, and so it's really focused around the snare drum. I'm actually just sort of remembering what this is. And so I think what's happening here is it's trying to accentuate the volume of the snare drum in these room mics. I think the kick drum was actually a little bit too bombastic sounding in these mics, so just turning it down, a few dB helped get that balance together. There's a little bit of spring reverb on here, just to add a little tail to it. This is just for phasing. It looks like I reversed the phase on these. Okay, and then this, ironically, is turning down the snare drum. I probably could have just left the gate and this off, and everything would have worked out fine. This is me definitely overthinking things here. And then this is probably automated. So let me see what's going on here. We'll see what this does. Okay, yeah, I remember this now. There was an overtone in the guitar when he plays this transition that was totally overwhelming, and your ear sort of loses track of what the fundamental of the chords is there. And so this is obviously with this crazy, notching out of this frequency. And then here it is without it. Yeah. That overtone is just exploding out of the speakers there. And here it is with the EQ again. Yeah. Very interesting. That one was driving me nuts. So I definitely tamed it. So then The next part of the drum sound was just to add a little more detail to the attack of the parts that was being played. And so in this, I ended up having a kick/snare mic. I believe it is the EV666, that dynamic microphone. It looks like a little submarine. And in the pictures, it looked like that got moved around to the batter side. It's got a cool mid-rangey knock to it, so you can check that out. Yeah, so a really nice, soft quality to it. Little gating going on here. And some automation on the gating. So this also looks like it's trying to accentuate the snare drum. So the attack of the kick drum is not too aggressive. But I really like the mid-range focus of the sound of the kick drum in this little gentle knock of the kick drum. Okay, so then this is me just making this, eliminating all the subby stuff that you see down here, and accentuating this 130 hertz. I think that's really for the kick drum. I wanted this to have sort of a chestier punch to it, and so without it, and there's some nice low end there, but it worked out better. And I experimented with all of this. I did a duplicate of the kick/snare mic, tried doing my trick of like filtering off all the low end, delaying it. It's a thing that you probably, if you've watched any of these other episodes, you've seen come up a lot in this, in these episodes. And for some reason, this one, as nice as the low end, it didn't add up as well as the other mics and sources that I had available. So I ended up just leaving it off there. I'm getting the low end from other microphones, other sources. Okay, and then here's Spiff, adding a little bit more of that mid-range knock. So that's with it. That's without it. Yeah, I love getting the drums to speak more in the mid-range, and Spiff has been amazing for that. It's been really great. Okay, so here's the next part of the low end. So this is a kick mic that was on the resonant side of the bass drum, not super far away. It's probably maybe a foot away from the drum, somewhere just off center of the kick drum on the resonant side. It's an AKG D20.
Is that the one that's all kicked open?
No, it's like the little rectangular looking guy,
Yeah.
little boxy looking guy. It's silver on one side and black on the other side.
Yeah, I thought it had a dent in the front of it.
It's the one that we used at the YouTube
Yeah.
sessions. It was that mic.
That sexy little mic.
Yeah. You're a sexy little mic.
Yeah, I know.
And so this guy, very aggressive filtering going on here. So we got a high pass at 47 hertz, and then a low pass at 100 hertz, just picking up basically where that other, where the kick/snare mic was leaving off. That was high pass at about 130 hertz. This starts at 100 hertz, goes down. Ultimately, this ends up being a little bit delayed from that, so it looks like I didn't have to actually intentionally delay it. I experimented with that, but I left it bypassed. It sounded good with its natural timing. I think it is naturally going to be a little bit behind the kick/snare mic because that thing is just pointed right at the beater, and this is on the other side of the drum, so it's a few, couple, 2-3 milliseconds later. And so then the last part of the low end is this subharmonic synthesizer, this thing. And I discovered this in the midst of mixing this record and fell in love with it and ended up trying it on everything. I don't know if it ended up getting used on everything, but I would say 70-80% of the songs, I'm using this on the drums. And so check out what this thing is doing. It's just that super deep, subby thing. And I flipped the phase. Again, I didn't have to do any delaying on it. The way the sound added up with the original thing, or with the source. And so the only thing that's being sent there is that AKG D20 mic that's already filtered like this. And so this signal gets sent to this guy, and we're hearing it now. So let's hear our kick drum all together. Yeah. And so it's one of the things that I was the happiest about with this particular mix on this record, is that it has this really wonderful deep low end to it, but it's not overly intrusive. It's not so aggressive that it is distracting. It's just this beautiful, solid support for the song, without being distracting, and pulling my attention away from what's really important in the song, which is what's being said. So all these together, let's see, before we do that, there's one more thing. I have my chamber mic. He was playing so quiet on this song. You can see the level is just, almost non-existent for this chamber mic. So the way this works is the drums are set up underneath the drumbrella, and then behind him there's a door that opens up into a reverb chamber, and so I can control how bright or dark it is, depending on how much I open the door. And so it was open just a little bit, maybe like 6 inches or a foot, something like that. And so the sound of him actually playing the drum kit outside of that door pours into the chamber, and I had a microphone in there. I believe it was a pair of KM84s in there, picking up the chamber. So that sounds like this. I'm going to turn it up for a second because it's really subtle in the blend. You can hear that little splash of reverb on the brushed snare drum hits. Okay, and so this guy, yeah, just taking out a lot of this boomy low end stuff. I just wanted it to be air, just like little splashes on the snare drum hits. This is me evening out the level. The right side, you can see in the audio file, the right side was a little quiet there. No delay adjustment or anything like that. It looks like I experimented with having a timed slapback, so it would go. It was too effecty for this. I just left it natural reverb. So yeah, so just this EQ, pretty aggressive here. Minus 26 dB at 1K, and that's kind of a lot. This got bypassed, so it's not being used. And then taking out some of the more aggressive, edgy, high mid-range. Here, you know what? Okay, let's hear with and without this. This is kind of interesting, actually. Oh, I see. This is also adding an insane amount of level so it can be audible in the mix, because I took out so much. I had to boost this 36 dB just to get it so it would blend decent. Okay, so how are we going to hear this? Okay, so this is without the EQ. Yeah, it's just too thick and too boomy sounding for this. And so I turned it into that, just airy splashes on the snare. Okay, so now let's hear the whole drum thing. Got those beautiful crash cymbal hits with little sizzlers on them. Matt Musty plays with incredible internal dynamics. He's able to just hit the cymbals at exactly the right volume, because I have no control over the balance between the drums, or very little. I'm trying to do a little bit with some gating and multi-band compressors and stuff, but if he hits something too hard, a cymbal or whatever, there's really not much I can do about it. So he is amazing at keeping things balanced. I had a mono overall drum kit mic And I was really intending to use that, but it was just terrible. And so I ended up switching to just room mics. And I've talked about this before. If a drum sound is not feeling particularly cool or vibey, a lot of times the solution is just mute the close mics, use only room mics, and for me, it seems like all of a sudden everything gets a lot cooler sounding. So this was the mono overall drum kit mic. Yeah, it's just too aggressive, and there's no space around it. So there's all the drum stuff, and we'll move on to the bass here. So the bass was played by Curtis Kieber. He is touring with Grace's band. Started playing with her not long before these sessions, so he'd only been playing with her for maybe a month or so before this, and he's just been wonderful. Been wonderful to tour with, and has played really beautiful musical stuff all over the record. So this was a Magnatone guitar amp being used for bass. I believe it's the 460 model, 480 model, I think. And so he was out in the room with everybody else. We just had him capturing a DI, and then going into, it was being fed via reamp into this Magnatone amp that was in another isolation booth. The larger isolation booth that I have, it's the same booth that was used for the drums on Queens of the Stone Age and lots of other stuff. And so I actually room mic'd in the booth. So I'm not using a close mic on the bass. There's a pair of, I believe on this, what was it? I believe it's C37As in here. There's a pair of C37As in the room. And I used a little bit of an Eventide harmonizer to add a little bit of very quick slap delay. It's only like 13 milliseconds, something like that. And a little bit of detuning just to make it even a little wider and a little more dimensional sounding. So this is those two microphones with a little bit of H3000. It was definitely compressed. I compressed it with an Unfairchild on the way in. And so it sounds like this. Again, you can hear the guitar. The guitar was the loudest thing in the session, so it got into everybody's mics. Yeah, you can definitely hear the compression on there. But it's a nice wide, bass sound. I've been getting into that more lately instead of just having the mono, like right in the middle bass thing, just spreading it out more, especially on a song like this where there is a lot of space. And so let's see what we're doing with it. It's, just making room, pulling out at 180 hertz, making room for the guitar, trying to have the bass focus be a little bit lower.
Doesn't that look just like a boob with a green nipple?
It does. It does. Yeah. If a gal was, maybe.
Looks. I mean, that's like that's
planking. A gal
right.
Planking. Yeah.
Like on top.
Yep.
Looking down. That's what a yoga mat sees when I do yoga.
Yeah.
Naked. If my nipples were painted green.
Yeah.
I love
like
that
you haven't done that.
I love that you've created boobs with
go.
your little Pro Q Fab Filter.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Sorry, Fab Filter. The things we do.
I wasn't trying to have the bass be super duper subby because we have the kick drum for that. The kick drum is really down in that like 30 or 40 hertz range, and this is a little punchier. You can see it's just not, there's not a huge amount going on down here. So drums and bass together. Yeah, so all the sub comes from the kick drum, and the bass sits on top of that. So then we have the guitar. I reamped this, and I think it was really just because, for whatever reason, I didn't like the way the mic had captured the amp sound itself. And so
I'm always capturing a super clean DI, direct digital into the computer, as well as the amp when I'm recording this stuff. The amp, you know, it also gets captured digitally, also goes to the tape machine. I have a lot of options available. And in this case, I was able to use the DI and reamp his performance. I used the same amp. It was really just about the miking that I wanted to get better. And so the settings, everything, I think were pretty much basically the same. And so this is a Vox Cambridge. It's like the American version of an AC30. The mic was a Neumann M582, probably 2 or 3 feet away from the cabinet. And I just kind of played with the right angle just to try and get it so it, you know, was speaking in a really sort of sweet musical way. And I typically use a different cabinet with the Vox Cambridge. I don't love the sound of the speaker that's in the cabinet, and so the Vox Cambridge was feeding into my Fender Vibroverb speakers. And so that's what was getting mic with the M582. So you can hear, this is the close mic on there. And so there's obviously trem, a little bit of spring reverb. The amp has spring reverb in it. And so, you know, it may have gotten a little compression going in. I think I was using 1176s for guitar compression when we were tracking. So it's maybe a hint of that. And it was 1176. And so then we can see what's going on with the mixing here. So there's this stuff, I'm just making room for the vocal. So pulling out, you know, this is at 500 hertz, 7 dB. In the verses on this song, you know, Grace is singing in a pretty low register, and so she's all in this range, all over the place. And so, like, you know, if I pull up her vocals.
And you say that I threw it all away.
Yeah, so her fundamentals are all around there.
But the only thing I threw away,
yeah, you can see all this stuff.
Was you.
And so, yeah, a bunch of 116 hertz, 213, you know, it just created this canyon all around here. And there's some crazy automated stuff going on in here too. Let me find that. Okay, yeah, so it's right here. There's these. Yeah, these crazy overtones. Here. And it was just overwhelming what the fundamental notes of the chord, the root notes of the chords were. So I just want to take those out. Yeah, so that's with the EQ. And then let's see what else we got here. Okay, pretty significant brightening here, right at 3.5K, a really aggressive frequency range there. You know, I think originally I wanted this guitar to be kind of darker and more distant, and then when I got to the final mix, this was a frequency range that definitely needed to be occupied for the whole mix to sound more balanced. And so, you know, with all the stuff that's being subtracted here and all the stuff that's being added here, it's a big, big difference. And then this is automated. There's places where this turns on. Yeah, so right here. This adds a little more mid-range, 1.5K. I did that in the sections where he's playing in a lower register and the guitar just needed to speak a little more in the mid-range. So, you know, you can hear the original sound. It's really dark, you know. So, and that's where we ended up. Still very natural sounding. You know, that's why I always feel like You don't have to be shy about doing, some pretty extreme stuff with EQ. I find that, if you're enhancing or subtracting the right things, it'll still sound very natural, even with some really aggressive moves. So then this, what is this doing? This is automating some stuff here. Let's see. Okay, yeah. Okay, I remember this, yeah. He plays this one really high passage where it really poked out right in the sort of high mid-range, around 2K. So this is with it. Yeah, that slide up. And so without it, it was just jumping out a little too much, just stabbing me in the ear hole a little there. So this smoothed it out. And then the last thing here looks like some noise. This must have gotten automated as well. So, okay, yeah, you can see it here. Yeah, it's just getting rid of the amp noise and whatever tape hiss and stuff. So there it is without it. There it is with it doing its thing. And this thing's incredible. I always do the learned noise signature. It's just absolutely magical what this thing does. It learns what the noise profile is, and then it only takes out that information when you're running it, and leaves, in theory, as much of the music there as possible. And it's incredible what it does. Can be totally invisible and rescue, some pretty dire noisy situations. So I think the other thing that's just important to know about this guitar, let's see, I did add, here we go, I almost forgot about these. There's these cool little reverb splashes that happen on these amazing augmented chords that Benny came up with for this song. The original thing had this sort of this very country sounding riff, and he came up with the cool augmented chord thing. And so the second time it happens, I enhance it with my Roland chorus echo. So you can check that out. There it is with it. Here's the chorus echo by itself. It's such a cool sound. Just that cool, drippy, watery, spring reverb tape delay thing. And without it, yeah, it's a nice sound, just not quite as atmospheric there. So, and I ended up not doing it at the beginning. I felt like it was a little too out of context coming from Grace's vocal.
Yeah. It would be weird to hear like a completely disembodied alien.
Yeah, there's all of a sudden this big soupy.
But I wouldn't put it past you.
Yeah. Well, this was the album of restraint for me.
Yeah.
So
it was amazing watching you just break all your rules over and over again on this record.
Yeah.
I was like, when's the chorus gonna do that thing? Like the that Eric Valentine special, just like make everything just go and you just like, why and how did you come to the conclusion that shouldn't happen on this record?
Because this was just a different statement that was being made. It was a story that was being told, and I never wanted to distract from the story that was being told ever. Mm-hmm. And so, so many of the other projects that I've been involved with, it was appropriate to have them be this like
event.
Yeah, ear candy, collage of sounds, that grab your attention and keep your attention, because there's always new things popping up. But in this, attention is squarely on your voice telling a story the whole time. I don't want a bunch of stuff, pulling my attention away from that.
Maybe that's why the vocals needed to happen live, because if I had known that you were putting me under that kind of microscope and that your intention was for it to be so naked, I probably would have freaked out. But you had the foresight to have the band record live mean, that's something
I
that.
was figuring it out. I didn't really know what the fuck I was doing.
Yeah, I mean, it ended up so naked, but at times it explodes into, like Back to Me. That chorus comes in and suddenly there's like a string section and a horn section and a bunch of amazing singers, and the song rocks, but it still doesn't go boom the way that I know your production goes boom. It's like one of the things that is it's the most exciting thing to hear, and yet you're absolutely right. It would have been really strange for this record.
It'd be distracting. It would take your attention from what's really important.
And I wanted the guitar to just be in that room to start off with, and then the second time it gets a little dreamier sounding, and then it really does it here. To take you into the dreamy vocal section. And I think the guitar sound, so much of this guitar sound is what other mics in the room are picking up. The close mic sounds nice, but what makes it really, really compelling and have all of the dimension to it is how it is enhanced by the drum room mics and ultimately also this acoustic guitar mic, which we're going to get to in a second. But check this out. So when the other mics are turned on, that's when you get this amazing dimension and this really, clear sense of the room that this guitar is being played in. And so, let's go up here. And we'll play that same thing without the rooms. It's just a totally different thing. I mean, this just makes such a huge difference. And there's certainly a risk, in using the other instrument mics in the room to provide a room sound for the guitar. If that balance isn't right, you can definitely get into some trouble. But if it's done with a little bit of care, I think the results are really incredible. And then, I'm not like juggling a bunch of room mics, and it all just happens naturally with the setup that's happened. Everything is a lot simpler. There's really not that many tracks on this song. There's 4 tracks for the drums, there's 2 for the bass, there's a close mic for the electric guitar, a close mic for the acoustic guitar, lead vocals, and the organ. That's just not a lot of stuff. The other stuff that you're seeing in here is just me either duplicating things or adding reverb or whatever. So it's a really, really simple setup, and you get all of that dimension because the sound of one instrument is getting into other instruments' mics, and it just expands the sound of everything. The other thing that's important, you have to have a band where everybody will give you a good take at the same time, because if any one of the 6 people that were in the room screws up, they ruin it for everybody. It ruins the take for the other 5 people if one person blows it. So you got to have some really great players, So let's get into the acoustic guitar now. So here's this guy. Again, a lot of electric guitar in there. So not real dramatic EQing going on here. It's just a dynamic EQ at around 180 hertz. It's just kind of a boomy area in acoustic guitars, and some of the notes and chords he's playing were resonating here more than others. So I wanted to just kind of even it out, so there wasn't spots where the low end kind of overwhelms things. A gentle high pass, right around 70 hertz. I actually reduced the Q so it sort of eases into it. This must be automated. And so let's see what's going on with this. Okay, it's coming up here. Oh, okay, yeah. So this is that same overtone getting into the acoustic guitar mic that I was having to gouge out of the guitar because it was just overwhelming the root notes of the chords. So without it, it's amazing. It almost sounds like there's a vibraphone playing. Doo, doo. Yeah, so there you go. Just taming that overtone. And then what is this? Okay, so this must be automated as well. Let's see where this does its thing. Okay, so it's up here. Okay, so interesting. So obviously there's just some crazy overtones that were sticking out on this microphone. It's what I love about Soothe. Like, I didn't really focus it in a particular range. There's a little bit of a boost here at 4K, but it's kind of across the whole spectrum. And Soothe, it does that thing where it's like, it just finds the things that are sticking out and turns them down automatically. It's totally incredible. And so I have the sharpness turned all the way up, so it's just tweezing out any, aberrant overtones that are just out of balance. And so, so here it is with it in this passage. Okay, now without it. One more time with it. Yeah, so it's just taking out these really boxy, weird mid-range, low-mid overtones in there. Probably similar thing. Just leaving space for other things. Yeah, and this one is softening that kind of more aggressive rake that he had. Yeah, same thing here. Yeah, just some big mid-range overtones. So there you go. That's the acoustic. Let's see. This was, I'm quite sure this was my Epiphone. It's a 60s Epiphone acoustic. We had a few different guitars there. He brought a beautiful Martin in, but his Martin is more mid-rangey than this. So I'm quite sure it was the Epiphone, and I definitely used Beyer 160 to mic it. I love Beyer 160s. I have these vintage ones. They're silver. I believe they're from the 60s and 70s, and man, they're just amazing on acoustic guitar. I used them on all the acoustic guitar on this record. So Beyer 160 on there, undertone preamp, and then I believe it's an Unfairchild. I had a bunch of Unfairchilds set up for this session. I think I had 3 or 4 of them in the room. So Unfairchild for the acoustic guitar on this. And so I believe that's all the acoustic guitar stuff. So next we have the organ. And so this is Benmont's organ. It was such an interesting choice. He ended up, I think the obvious thing to do on a track like this would be to get a nice warm balance with the drawbar settings and have a slow, a nice stereo Leslie, rotation going on, so you get this cool kind of, dreamy stereo organ pad. But he went for this crazy, just like, he stopped the Leslie speaker, and it's this crazy, like, super straight, like transistor organ sound. And so this is what the final thing ended up sounding like. And I ended up doing some weird stuff with it because it was so straight and so stiff sounding that just the tone of it, that I was having trouble getting it to blend. It would poke out because it didn't breathe at all like everything else in the song. So I ended up running this sound through the Roland chorus echo. And so what we're hearing, there's no spring reverb on it. It's all the tape delay coming back. And so I had to slide it forward after I ran it through there. and got it to do those little pitch variations, and it fluctuates. There's a wow and flutter in there and stuff, and it just gives it a little more life, and it breathes a little bit more instead of just being this totally static, just thing. Yeah, so you can hear some little glitchy things in there and stuff. And you can see there's these edits in these very sort of regular intervals, and that's because tape delays, it's a tape loop that's going around in circles in there, and there's a splice point in it. And so about every 10 seconds, you run over the splice, and it really glitches. And so what I do is I do a pass all the way through the song, and every 10 seconds, you'll hear this really glitchy thing that happens. And then what I do is I start it up again with another pass, and presumably odds are that the tape splice is not going to fall in exactly the same place. It would be a random chance if it did. So I start it up again, and I just punch everywhere where those glitches are, and then I just put in little fades. And so you can hear what I'm covering up. I'll pull this out, and yeah, you can hear it really tweaking out in there. Yeah, there's another one. There's another one here. Let's see what this sounds like. Some of them are worse than others. That one's not too bad. But I felt like that was a little too much. It was just kind of distracting. It's like I don't want it to sound like, hey, cool tape delay effect on there. I just wanted to give it a subtle little, variations in there that just give it a little more life, but not have it, draw too much attention to itself. So I cleaned those up by punching in all of those spots. And so then on this, looks like just automated noise reduction at the end, I'm guessing. We'll confirm that here. Yep, yeah, so it just turning down noise at the end. You can see it come up here. Yeah. So that's the organ. So now, vocals. So this is Grace singing in the booth. It's a Telefunken 251 going through an undertone preamp. I have to set the gain pretty low because I just keep it low, overall, and so I can use one setting throughout the record because she has a huge dynamic range in her voice. So it's the 251 set in Omni, by the way. On this record, she was Omni pattern all the time. I always wanted to hear the space that she was in, even if it was a little booth or there was some stuff where she was out in the room, but always wanting to hear that space that she's in. So Omni, and then I would use 2 compressors in series to try and even out her dynamics. So that it went through this crazy old, it was a FET style compressor that Decca Studios in London made a long time ago. And I happened to stumble onto it at a certain point. It's an incredible vocal compressor. So it went through that first, an initial round of evening, and then it went into an Unfair Child, more smoothing and evening. I find that if you do 2 compressors in series instead of trying to use one compressor to even all of the dynamics out, it actually ends up sounding more natural because each of those units individually don't have to work as hard. And compressors, I think you really start to hear them when they really start to have to clamp down. And so, the 2 of them combined kept her, in focus without it ever really sounding overly, crushed with compression. So that was the chain going in. Obviously went through the tape machine, the Scully 16-track tape machine. And then, not a whole lot going on in the session. This was a pretty magical combination for her voice. And so There's a little bit of this mid-range stuff going on. I've talked about this in other episodes. You know, she has this incredible power in her voice, and she uses this mid-range resonance to get her voice, to get this amazing volume with her voice. But just to try and help everything out, you know, I end up having to sort of duck some of that mid-range stuff once it's been captured by the mic.
Boxes lined up by the door.
So you can see it just tucking in the mid-range a little bit.
30 years of my life.
Some later spots where it might.
I'll call you cry.
Yeah, where she's singing a little harder.
Well, don't hold your breath.
And so you can hear without it.
In a month or two, I'll call you cry.
And then with it.
In a month or two, I'll call you cry.
So there's that. A little bit of noise reduction, automated again, probably just for the end, I'm sure. Oh, the beginning. Yeah, she's a cappella in the beginning, so just getting noise out of there. Pretty subtle. It's only 7 dB. So there's without it.
30 years of my life that you can't claim no more. So now you watch them tumble down. You pretty house of cards.
And then what's this? Just a high pass.
I'll call you cry.
180 hertz. You know, the standard Q of 1. 12 dB per octave. So there's something going on here. I believe this is automated.
I'm through with the endless fights and restless nights beside you.
Okay, there it is.
I'm keeping the love inside.
Yeah, so there's those spots where she's really resonating the mid-range. What ends up happening is that the two compressors that I was tracking with are dealing with the level of that, so they're turning her down a lot, but they're across the entire spectrum. So they are also turning down that sort of airy high end on her voice, and that gets lost as I'm trying to deal with evening out the dynamics of her voice. And so I'm trying to restore that with this EQ. So on this spot right here,
I'm keeping the love inside.
I'm just turning up that, you know, airy or top end to keep that there as the compressors were turning everything else down.
All away for nothing.
And there's just a few spots like that.
And all the sorrow.
So without it,
And all the sorrow.
it just gets a little too dark, you know, and that's really where you start hearing compressors, I think, you know, when they're really grabbing hard, because they're reacting to a frequency that's lower down, it just gets dark sounding because it's pulling everything down with it.
And all the sorrow.
Yeah. And so then the lead vocal has not a whole lot on it. There's this, again, rolling chorus echo, doing a slapback and a little bit of spring reverb.
30 big brown boxes.
So that's the effect by itself.
30 years of my life.
You can hear it's a little tweaky.
No more. So now you watch them tumble down. You pretty house of cards. This is my repossession.
So that's the two of them together. And then I was doing this a lot on this record because she was in a booth, and I did want to get her voice in the room, and so you know, I would take her voice and put it back out speakers in the main room where the band was tracking, and so I could have her sound, you know, like she was more in the room with everybody.
30 big brown boxes.
And so there's the room. And what is that?
30 years of my life that you can't claim no more.
You know what? This is actually,
Now you watch them.
this was done here in Topanga. I remember this now. So this is not the room at Barefoot. This is, and I even tried to redo it at Barefoot, and I liked this better, and so I kept it. So this is just in our living room through a Sonos speaker here in Topanga. Yeah, and I ended up keeping it.
Threw it all away for nothing.
So you can hear at the beginning here.
30 big brown boxes.
So that's with the
lined
room.
up by the door.
Now without.
30 years of my life that you can't claim no more.
Back in.
So now you watch them tumble down. You pretty house of
Yeah, it just adds
cards.
some width and some dimension
This is
to it.
my repossession.
And it just stays in for the whole
Possession
song.
of my heart.
There's places where I actually turn it up. I think actually, oh, I see. That's me just trying to manually make sure that you can hear everything, all the words that she's saying.
You carry on and say I'm
So in this,
just a fool.
yeah, I'm just lopping off all the low end stuff. It gets too boomy and cloudy down there. So, you know, high pass at 240 hertz, taking out some 570 hertz, just a couple dB, just so it's more the kind of like presence in the room.
Well, don't hold your breath.
And so that's it. The lead vocal is really simple. There's no actual real deliberate reverb. It's just a little spring reverb from the chorus echo, and then this room, our living room here in Topanga. So now, background vocals. This is the amazing Lucius. There is one exception. There was one spot, the spot that we just heard here, where I ended up using Grace's guide vocals. They just blended better.
Oh, you crying.
You know, I ended up using her on this spot. You can see these were her guide tracks, and they're muted everywhere else and replaced with the vocals that were done with Lucius, but this one spot I ended up keeping the guide tracks. And there's this cool, let's see, yeah, chorus echo again. So there's just like a slap back with a bunch of feedback on there and a bunch of spring reverb. And so without it, and then with it. Yeah, this makes it a little more super in there. And so then up here, so now we get into good stuff. Here's the big solo section. And so this is the three of them. This is Grace in the middle and Jess and Holly on each side, each with their own mic. So Grace is singing into the same 251 that she did her lead vocals with. And then Jess and Holly are on U67s. That was the closest I had to 251. I would have loved to use three 251s. Don't have three 251s, so that did not happen. And so 267s, and I'm pretty sure that I put the mics in figure 8 because they're just all lined up next to each other, and so the mic is not hearing what's immediately to the side of it. It totally cancels that out, and you get much better isolation between them. So all three mics in Fig 8. And so this is them all singing at the same time. It's really incredible. And so it's all being bussed here, and I have just like a mono vocal master because for this section it is really the centerpiece, and so I just made them mono in the middle. And so it sounds like this. And so it looks like there's a little bit of EQ. What? Oh, I remember what this was. Yeah, that's crazy. This is an EQ match going on here. And so I think there was something that we had to fix here, and I EQ matched it to what was originally there. That's crazy. Oh my God. Okay, let's see what's going on here. So here's the BGB master, and yeah. And what is this? I guess I ended up not needing this. I don't know if this doesn't get turned on. That was an experiment that ended up not being used. And so then it looks like there's some dynamic EQ stuff going on. So this was this was the experiment. I ended up using this HOFA EQ, dynamic EQ, and then Soothe, which is another form of dynamic EQ. And so these are just managing mid-range overtones. Yeah. So you can see them start to grab some stuff when they're singing out a little more. If I turn it off, you hear those overtones start poking out more. Yeah, it just helps maintain the balance of the voices. So like there isn't a particular note that's sticking out over one of the other notes. And I find these things to be extremely helpful for that, just to make sure that you're hearing all the notes in the chord in three-part harmony, balanced better throughout the whole passage. So there's that, and then there's the same rolling chorus echo doing its thing, spring reverb and tape delay. And then later, once they're actually serving more as a background part, I made it more stereo, and so I added a second pass of the chorus echo, which gets panned to the left, and then there's an automated panning of the dry vocal that goes more to the right, and so it just opens it up a little bit, so it'll wrap around the lead vocal instead of be fighting for that same center position in the mix. It's just a little wider. And so you can hear it in context how it just kind of moves to the sides and lets the lead vocal.
Someone new.
They're a little bit out.
And you say that I threw it all away for nothing. But the only thing I threw away was you.
Cool. So that's all the individual elements in the song. It's really quite simple, There's just these two drum mics. Let's add this up. So 1, 2, 3, 4 drum mics, 5, 6 bass, electric guitar 7, acoustic guitar 8, organ is 9, lead vocal 10. This is all just reverb stuff. And then 3 tracks for the harmony vocals. This is all reverb stuff. So what is that, 13 tracks? Yeah, it's a total of 13 tracks on this song. That's it. So let's look at the overall mix setup a little bit. I am using my my passive summing mixer for this. I didn't really need to because most of it, there isn't a whole lot of separate processing going on. There is a little bit actually. Now I think about it. So we'll go through that setup. So the drums actually have a pair of these old Siemens, W295 EQs on them. It's just adding 2 dB at 5.6K. So here we can check with and without that. Let's hear that really quick. So I'll solo the drum stuff here. And there it is with it again. So just adding a little extra, detail to the high end. Real simple. And so there, all the drums you can see are going out my Lynx Aurora converter, Lynx 3 and 4 there. So that shows up here on the summing mixer. You can hear these guys get turned on and off there. And then all the other instruments are coming in here, 11 and 12.
You say in a month or two
And so all of this stuff gets summed together and shows up as the music bus right here.
Well, don't hold your breath. The phone won't ring.
And they're getting summed with these Neve mic preamps, these 1081 style mic preamps. And then the vocals are coming back here. So the lead vocal shows up mono here. Right? Then the background vocals show up here. And these inputs get summed together into a stereo blend that shows up right here. It's all the vocals. So I can mute all the vocals right there. And then these two stereo pairs get summed together to be the actual final mix. And so the vocal stuff, that's getting summed with a pair of Neve preamps. These are, the final summing stage is a pair of undertone preamps. I like those better for that final thing where it's really putting the whole mix together. And so all of that goes to my Lavery Gold converter. And then that shows up here. So you can see the Lavery mix input. And so this is just an aux fader. And then I can do some final processing with plugins on the overall mix here. And then there's a send right here, bus 5 and 6. This is what gets printed. So like right here, this is the final print of this. When I was doing it for the album, I was actually printing it through an analog tape machine, an ATR 102, Ampex ATR 102. And so, but there's no compression going on this mix. There's no overall mix bus compression. I hadn't really remembered that until I recalled the mix, and it was like, wow, I didn't compress this at all. It didn't need it. I think if you can get away with not compressing your mix, it sounds bigger. It'll just be a bigger, more open sound. This didn't need it. Everybody played beautifully. It doesn't need to be, overly aggressive or dense sounding. The space is actually, the song benefits more from having the space than having it be really dense and aggressive. And so no compression on the whole mix. So the whole thing does show up here. Normally it would go through a tape machine. You can see my naming scheme here. So this is REP for repossession. .log means it went through a tape machine, analog tape machine. .ld means it's the loud version that has the extra limiting to make it more like a CD level. And then just naming the pass, second pass. And so then here is the log mix, but without all of the plugins. So I can capture the tape machine version. So this is just grabbing the Lavery mix converter without these plugins. So in mastering, I can go and make adjustments to this stuff, because a lot of this stuff is essentially mastering type stuff, and I'm monitoring it while I'm mixing. And then I have a digital print of the mix as well, just in case the tape machine screws something up or whatever, or I want to run it through a different tape machine. So I have all three of those options.
Can I say something
What?
about the way you choose to title songs?
Okay, sure.
I really appreciate that it helps you to stay organized.
Uh-huh.
But when you send that to anybody who doesn't know anything about whatever you just said,
Right.
they're like, where's the song Repossession? Because you wrote, I can't see it now on the screen.
rep.log.ld. Yeah.
Go fuck yourself.
Right.
But I'm just saying, like, that's how I felt when you sent me the first. It was when we were doing Midnight. You sent me some early mixes, like really early. The amount of letters and numbers that had nothing to do with anything near the name of my song was infuriating.
Yeah.
So I would work on that.
Yeah, I'm totally gonna.
Can you call every song?
Totally gonna just keep doing it exactly the
I
same
know you
way.
are.
Yeah.
I know you are. What you're saying is I should name my song LG.2synapse dot divided by 7040 dot rev slash J37 .com.
That sounds like a rad title.
So you will know how to categorize it in your log bank.
Well, you know, I mean, the final versions that I send off have the actual title of the song. Once it's all sent off.
Okay. I'm tired of talking about this.
I'm super bored talking about the naming of my audio files, because it's definitely not changing. Okay. So this is the stuff that is the kind of mastering type processing. So there is some compression, I guess. There is actually some compression. It's only compressing the low end on the mix, so you can see. So it's just kind of opening up that low mid-range, and it adds more sustain to the low frequency. So it does add some density in the low end. I think this song benefited from that. Here's a little stereo widening. You can hear it with and without that. Cool. And then here's this cool FabFilter Saturn setting that I've been using on some mixes. You may have seen this in some of the other episodes, but it's the same thing. I turned the mix down to about 60%, so it's not quite as aggressive, but it adds a nice sheen to everything, and actually it is compressing a little bit the overall mix. So there is. I'm not doing any external compression to the whole mix, but it looks like I am actually doing it with some plugins here. So we can hear with and without this. Let's get everybody going for this. This will be cool. Let's go back a little bit.
But the only thing I threw away was you.
Yeah, it's cool. It just adds some amazing energetic life to the sound. It's, you know, this high frequency energy in the mix. It's a really, really cool thing. You know, like if I find it even more useful if I don't happen to be printing through an analog tape machine. Tape machines will add a similar type of effect, but in this case, the tape machine was doing its thing. I added even a little bit of this. I had the mix turned down a little bit so it's not so aggressive, but just beautiful high-end, you know, silky, shimmery energy in there. And then here's the level. I do monitor this while I'm mixing. I want to make sure that, you know, ultimately this mix is going to work when it gets limited. So I monitor with limiting. It's not super aggressive here.
But the only thing I threw away was you.
It's the monitored setting. Working a little harder here. And somebody asked about this, whether I use oversampling. Normally I do. When I installed the Pro L2, I forgot to make that a part of my default. I usually have it at 4 times, and just forgot to do it. We'll turn it on now. I mean, the record's already out, so it's not going to change anything, but it's nice to know it's on there now. Using the modern algorithm. A little bit of look ahead here. I find the look ahead helps. If this thing is doing a lot of limiting when there's a lot of mid-range going on, you can get some distorted artifacts, and the look ahead will help tame those a little bit. So that's pretty much everything. I can't think of anything else. Fortunately, not a whole lot in there, so it was easy to blast through this. And now I will give you back to the normal programmed information with Grace and I being silly. All right, here you go. There it is. My favorite recording that I've ever done. What do you think, Mom?
It's one of my favorite things that I've ever watched you enjoy doing.
Yeah.
The other one being making our baby, but nobody else could be there for that one. So,
No.
And we shouldn't make a video about it.
No,
So
that's a whole different YouTube
Yeah.
channel.
Okay, we'll do a new wrap up. Hang on, we gotta redo this. Can't share that one with the world.
Okay, so there you have it.
You have it.
That is
Repossession.
my favorite recording that I've ever done. What do you think about that?
You know what I think about it. I've been telling you what I think all night long.
Yeah. Okay, well, this was a very exciting day. We're celebrating
We are.
the release of a record.
Chin.
Chin Chin.
Thank you for making this record with me.
Thank you for sharing this whole journey with me, this whole crazy experience. It's been absolutely life-changing and incredible. I wake up every day just like, I can't believe this is my life. This is incredible.
I know, it's so nuts.
It's insane.
But we get to do it.
I feel like we just did some sort of like
Yeah, quantum,
quantum jump to a different,
we found that.
parallel reality or something.
Oh God, it's like that John Malkovich movie where they go through like the 3/4 door.
Yeah, the
It's
little
not
John Malkovich.
Yeah, John Malkovich. We jumped through the John Malkovich door.
We did.
But I can't wait for what's gonna come next.
Yeah. Who knows what's
We
going to
have
happen
all
next.
kinds of weird, way not restrained things.
Yeah.
Sometime in the works.
Yeah, that's another episode.
I can't wait.
All right. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing this moment with us. And I hope there was some interesting, useful stuff in there. And we'll just see you next time. I think that's it.
Ba-da-da-da-da-shot. You take the whoozy with the whatsy. Connect the whatsy to the whoozy.
Yay!
Connect the thingamajig to the thingamabob. And that'll make the whatchamacallit go.
You put the whoosy on the whatsy. Attach the whatsy to the whoosy. Connect the thingamajig to the thingamabob, and that'll make the whatchamacallit go. You hook the gidget to the gadget. Adjust the gadget to the gidget. Unhook the dingley-dang from the diddly-doo.